Welcome to my first ever monthly reading wrap-up. Today we're going to be doing both my March and April reads. Okay, let's get started. In March, I started the Shatter Me series by Tahira Mafi. This is actually really good. I checked it out from the library because I was thinking I wasn't gonna like it too much. Read it, loved it, gave it a 5 stars, and then I bought the whole set. Also, I'm not like super into this cover. I know it's a beautiful eye, but also creepy because of the trees as the eyelashes. That was one of the reasons why I didn't want to purchase it. But you guys know this story. It's supposed to be a dystopian novel. This girl who anyone touches her, then they can get really injured. And if she touches them long enough, then they could eventually die. How are you supposed to have a love story when you can't touch anyone? Who knows? What a great start to the month. After that, I read Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This book is the epitome of close proximity romance trope. I like our tough girl. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I liked it. I just thought it was a little bit too long. Next, don't judge me. I read Credence by Penelope Douglas. I was curious. And actually, yes, it's a taboo romance because she's getting it on with her uncle and cousins, but it was written well. Taking away the fact that this book is a taboo romance, she's a good writer, Penelope Douglas. I also think she's like one of the most brave people on earth because how can you write a taboo romance about your cousins and uncle? How does she go to family functions? How does she look her husband in the eye? I gave this a 4 stars, so that's that. Next, I read The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This is an ice hockey romance, and I liked it so much better than Icebreaker. I gave this a solid 4 stars. It's just like a really good palate cleanser. You want to read something romancy. And after that, I read this book, The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. It's written by Gabrielle Zevin. She's the author of Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. But this one is a Gabrielle Zevin book, and it's thinner. If I can get the Gabrielle Zevin romance, but in a shorter version, I'm all for it. I actually rated this a 4.25 stars. It was a little slow to start for me. Synopsis on the back of the book is really not telling at all about what the book is. All you know going into this book is that it's a lit fic and the guy owns a bookshop. I still like Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow better, but this was not bad. Continuing on with the same video, The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. This was such a scrumptious cutie little book of a pink book. Can you tell I like the cover? This book is the Groundhog Day trope in that the day repeats itself over and over. But this book wasn't repetitive. It was actually kind of cute. Jess Mariano shows through in the main male character. I gave this book a 4.5 stars. And then I read Hello Stranger by Catherine Center, and this is also a cutie little book. So in the story, she has facial blindness, meaning she cannot recognize a person's face and can't recognize the people around her. So there's a love story in there with that. It's also 4.5 stars. And then we have House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. That kind of ending in mystery thriller books is not for me. I was wanting more of a bang in a maybe a smarter way. The story was written well. I was very into it, and then towards the end it was anticlimactic for me because I was like, what? That's gonna be the ending? That's how I felt. And we shall move on to the next book. I read The Final Offer by Lauren Asher. This is the 3rd book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. This was the best out of all 3, in my opinion. This is the thickest out of all of them, but honestly, her books read pretty quickly. But I gave this a 3.75 stars. Other romance books are a little better than this. This was just like a not bad book. And then I read Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. What a great book. That is not even a young adult book, it's a children's book. It was adorable. So the whole premise of this book is that we follow a young girl and she's about to turn 11, but she's also doomed to meet a tragic end. Some guy comes in and saves her, takes her to a different place called Nevermore. There she has to compete in some kind of trial so that she can stay in Nevermore. It was just really cute, sad, endearing, and I thought it was a really good storytelling. I had read this book right before Nevermore, and I just thought the storytelling in Nevermore was better than this one. Because here, she was very like, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling that way, I need to say it in order for you to know. But in Nevermore, it was just very apparent. She didn't need to say it explicitly to the reader. The reader can just infer, and I thought that was a little more powerful. So children's books, I guess don't knock it till you try it. Next, I continue with the Shatter Me series and read Unravel Me by Tahira Mafi. I'm not going to give you a synopsis of any books in a series because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who has not read the first book of a series. So I just will say that I like this book. This book was 4.5 stars for me. It was still good. I just wasn't as blown away as the first book. And then I read When True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Because of this book, I learned that the premise of the story really matters for me in order to enjoy it. So even if it's really great writing, I cannot enjoy the book fully if I feel like I'm uncomfortable. Because the whole premise of this book is that the female main character was married to a guy who supposedly died in a helicopter accident. So she moves on with her life, finds a new boyfriend who turns into a fiance, but then before she's about to get married, the husband who was supposedly dead says that, hey, I'm actually alive. So now what is she supposed to do? Go back to her husband or move through with the promise of the engagement with the new guy? What are you supposed to do? It was agonizing. I don't think I would want to read something like this again. And because it was written well, I gave this a 4.5 stars. Next, Check-in Made by Ali Hazelwood. The cover and everything, look at this. It's so beautiful! I think a lot of people were anticipating this book and a lot of people had mixed reviews on it, and I was one of those people who didn't give a glowing review. I love Ali Hazelwood. I loved Love Hypothesis. That will forever have a special place in my heart. This does not. There were a few things I didn't like about this book. She had a younger sister who was very foul-mouthed and was talking a lot about sexual stuff regarding our main character. I don't think a 10-year-old should be saying those kinds of things or even know about those things. I don't even think I knew about sex when I was 10 years old. When I was 10 years old, I thought the women get pregnant when you kiss at the altar of your wedding. I didn't know anything. And maybe that's just me being super naive and innocent, but it's not something I was comfortable reading. But the thing is, if I were to go back in time and know what I know about this book, I would still buy it and I would still read it. You know why? Because it's an Ali Hazelwood book. I want to finish my collection, and also it's a really cute cover. I rated this 3.5 stars. After that, I read Carmel by Stephanie Garber. I was not anticipating anything from that book at all. You've seen people online saying, I don't know if I should read this book before I read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. But me, I was like, why not give this a try? Loved it. I really liked that book. I was like gasping and I was shocked while I was reading it, and I was just like, the emotions and the hormones within me were like, oh my gosh. If you guys want to see my actual reaction to it, you can see it in my 24-hour readathon video. Needless to say, I gave it a 5 stars. Next, I read Daisy Hates by Jessica Hastings. This book series has such a following. I'm kind of terrified to say anything bad about this book, but I don't like it. I really cannot get myself to care for the characters. Why are they like that? It's not satisfying to read at all. I almost skimmed through the book because I was just so bored. You don't deserve each other. Just don't go out with each other. Don't talk to each other. I did not like Magnolia Parks. I thought this was a little bit better, but not by much. I think I gave Magnolia Parks a 3 stars, and I'll give this a 3.25 stars. Moving on. Now we'll move on to our April reads. I read the third book, Ignite Me by Tahera Mafi. I saw more romance in this book is all I'll say. I rated this a 4.75 stars. I really like this book. I really like this series, and I still don't like the eye. Next. After that, I read One From My Enemy by Olivia Blake, and I didn't like it. I'm sorry, Olivia Blake. Basically, it's a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, but in a fantasy form. But I just, oh gosh, it was too dramatic. And for what? You don't have to do this action because of this, and his words are not that deep. It doesn't mean that much. It was just not worth it. So I gave this a 3.5 stars. Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. I ate this up. This was so cute. I read this while I was in LA and I was watching my baby niece for the most part. Couldn't read this straight. It was a lot of stopping and starting because there was just too much chaos around. But I still really like this book. This book is basically set in the very yesteryears of London, and it's called Half a Soul because our female main character, she was cursed by a fairy when she was younger, leaving her soul without fear or embarrassment. And of course that's gonna make her seem a little bit weird. She doesn't care what other people think about her because she can't. It's just really funny that way. But of course back in that time, one of the big points for ladies was to get wed to a gentleman. If you're viewed upon as weird in society because you don't care about what other people think about you, it might not be too easy to find a man. That's why it was pretty funny. And also endearing. Our character is so lovable. The only thing I would say is if you don't tend to like the way that they talked back then maybe this book is not for you, but otherwise 5 stars. Okay, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. I don't know why I'm saying it like this. It was cute. I'll be honest, I was expecting just a little bit more from this book. I thought the romance was just slightly lacking, but I really liked our female main character. She was very lovable. I think the problem I had with it is towards the end where they had to wrap things up. I didn't feel like they wrapped it up well or at all, if any. There were some points where I'm like, okay, but what happened with this? I wasn't super satisfied with the reason for what they were doing, but I gave this a 4.5 stars. Foster by Claire Keegan. This book is a very short novel. I really like this book. I was thinking, if it's short, will I even be able to connect with the characters and care about them? Because I'm not really spending too much time with them. But it was a cute read and I just love this book. 5 stars. There was just so many little small things but very impactful things. The whole premise of this story is that our female main character is a young girl and her family is pretty poor. So she goes to live with different parents who are fostering her, but they are better able to take care of her, and her just acknowledging the difference and being appreciative of it and taking in what adults around her are saying. It's just so eye-opening. Next, we have another unexpected book. Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I gave this 5 stars. It was kind of cozy, but also it's set in like a war thing, so it's also chaotic. So this book is an enemies to lovers romance, and the whole setting of this book is that they're in a world where there's a war going on with gods. Gods are fighting each other and recruiting the mortals to fight for them. So her brother actually enlists for the war. She's missing her brother. She just like types up a letter. It's intended for her brother, but she's really writing it for herself. And for some reason, a letter comes back. That's where the magical realism comes in. She's just like writing to this anonymous person who keeps writing back. And I just think it was a very interesting story. It was a 5 stars. It wasn't like a, oh my gosh, this is 5 stars. This was like a, it's a 5 stars. I read the very infamous Abby Jimenez book, Yours Truly. I wanted to like it more than I did. Everyone seems to really love Abby Jimenez, and I'm just okay with it. Guess there's something wrong with me. I don't think it was like the best. Let me tell you why. Well, first, let me give you the whole premise of the story. Our female main character is a doctor. She has a brother who needs a kidney transplant. And our male main character is also a doctor, and he's also wanting to donate a kidney. So basically his kidney would go to our female main character's brother. What I had an issue with is that he was doing this when they were both in the very early stages of talking. I was just feeling so sorry for him the whole time. So imagine if you're him and you're trying to donate an organ of your body. The organ is gonna go to some love interest that you have an interest in, but you don't know if it's gonna work out well or if she even likes you. My heart would just be in and out of it based on how well it's going with the love interest. It would be a lot less emotional turmoil if you were giving it to someone who you don't know. I gave it a 4.5 stars. And then I read None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. When I was younger, I read a lot of mystery books. But of course, it was age-appropriate mystery books. And I guess you're allowed to do a lot of weirder things when you're older. And this was just a weird book. Check the trigger warnings before you read this book. My face was just very sour the whole time. But like the thing is, if you're into creepy stuff, I thought it was written well. It's just this particular one had a topic I wasn't very fond of. Oh, and another thing is too, you know when you read a mystery thriller, you're kind of guessing what's truly the real story. I was able to guess it, so I didn't like that. I wanted to be completely surprised. So I gave it a 3.5 stars. And then I read Love in the Big City by Sang Young Park, translated by Anton Her. I personally don't like this book. I thought it was a little boring, to be honest, about his daily life living as a queer person in Seoul. But there was no like peaks or troughs. It was just a very mundane sort of life. And sometimes mundane lives are interesting to read about. But in this case, I wasn't super intrigued. But I will say that Anton Her translates super well. It wasn't obvious that it was a translated book. And that's all I can really say about this book. 3 stars. And then we have Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. I was not completely fine after reading this book. This book was emotionally distressing. I was also thinking about Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory because she's super smart and very logical, and she might look like she has a stick up her butt because of the way that she's very particular about things. So I basically compared her to Sheldon Cooper, but with a traumatic past and female. I think this is also a really good take on terrible mother-daughter relationships. And she's just kind of blossoming as a person throughout the story. I really like this book. I gave this a 4.5 stars. It was a little bit slow to begin with, but it was still a good book. Next, we have The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. This is a gothic fairy tale. I didn't particularly enjoy this book. I couldn't find myself invested. It was just an okay read. The only thing I really liked about it is that it was a fast read. So obviously this novel is centered around the flower bride, but the book, it's a dual point of view from her husband and from her childhood friend who she's no longer talking to. Because she's no longer talking to the childhood friend's POV is in the past tense. You're going back in time from her childhood friend, coming back to the present with her husband's point of view, and just keep going back and forth. The husband just has no idea about his flower bride's past. So one day she gets notified that her aunt is dying, and so both of them go to her childhood home, and there he can kind of snoop around. But the whole way through, I wasn't super caring about what's going on. I was kind of feeling pressured to give this a higher rating because of the type of novel it is, but I didn't enjoy it. So I gave this a 3.25 stars. Next, we are turning 180 here and going into Wildfire by Hannah Grace. First book is Icebreaker, which I did not like. Also did not like this one. Granted, this one was a little better. Basically, these two have a one-night stand, think they're never gonna see each other again. They meet up by coincidence as summer camp counselors at a summer camp. We all know what this kind of book is. It's smutty. So there's smut at the camp, which I didn't feel comfortable with because it's for kids. What if the kid walks in on you? I guess I didn't think about the premise of the book and think that, oh, they're gonna be doing it at a summer camp. If you're gonna have it be like that, why not have them volunteer at an old folks home? If they get caught, they might still be mortified, but it's not anything that they don't know. 3 stars. Now we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. The cover is the most beautiful cover really I've ever seen. She's just like trying to make an encyclopedia of fairies, and as she digs deeper, she just kind of gets herself into these situations, and there's a very small subplot of romance. It's an endearing book that's really cute and cozy. I read this half in LA, and I also listened to it on audiobook partly, and the audiobook was pretty good too. For the longest time, not a fan of audiobooks, but now that I've tried it, very convenient because you can do other stuff. That is all of what I read in March and April. That was a lot of books. How many books is that? 28 books. I had a great time reading these books. I found some amazing 5 stars, and I hope you had a great time listening to me ramble about these books. So I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching. Bye!